What's up, you guys? First, it feels good to be back behind the camera. I definitely needed to take some time away from recording some videos. As much as I do love doing it, I feel like I honestly needed a break. But I am excited to get back behind the camera and start recording, as it's been a crazy year so far. I just finished the San Juan Solstice 50 miler for my 7th race of the year, and we're not even in July at the time of this recording. If you've been following me on Instagram, you've probably seen a lot of the results and just like the different things that have been happening over the last couple of months. But for today's video, I wanted to spend some time to just recap the San Juan Solstice 50 miler, as it was definitely an experience that I will never forget, and I'm so excited to share the story. I'm going to do things a little bit different than how I normally do with a video, and I'm actually going to be reading straight from my journal. I've just kind of opened up about everything on how the race went, what happened, the finish line, all that stuff. So let's just jump right in. The San Juan Solstice 50 miler in Lake City, Colorado. 50 miles across 3 mountains with over 12,000 feet of elevation gain, all while staying above 8,000 feet. This was by far one of the hardest challenges I've ever taken on, but one question that came up was why? Why a 50-mile race in the mountains? As I progress as an athlete, my focus has always been to push the limits and see where my personal ceiling is. This could mean how fast I can run 13.1 miles flat on the road, or how fast I can complete a functional fitness test like High Rocks. And this past weekend was focused around covering a specific distance across aggressive terrain. The race was unlike anything I've ever experienced before, and in prep for the race, I saw that 1 in 3 people DNF in 2023, so I really wanted to focus on everything I can control to make sure that I wasn't one of those 3 people. From a training standpoint, I was running anywhere between 60 and 70 miles a week, coupled with 3 straight training sessions. I was eating 3,500 calories a day and drinking a gallon of water with that. To keep the training from getting monotonous, I threw in a couple of B races to shake things up. And a lot of people ask, like, well, what is a B race? And for me, a B race is something that not only helps my body physically in going through the process of racing, but the whole mental process. And some of the things that I think about is, like, if you ever see a quarterback that's been to the Super Bowl many times, how they walk into the field versus a quarterback that is going to the Super Bowl for the first time. The guy that's been there before typically is more relaxed versus the guy that's there for the first time, and that just comes with the reps and the experience. And for me, I look at that as doing B races and prep for an A race like the San Juan Solstice 50 miler. This is my first time running the San Juan Mountains, and it was incredible to be at 13,000 feet and just see mountains as far as you could see. To be on the Continental Divide with perfect weather reminded me of how lucky I truly am. But don't get me wrong, it was hard. By mile 25, I was done with the second mountain, and in my head, there was no turning back. While the next 15 miles were a slight downhill, I didn't realize how bad that would destroy my knees. The best part about the race had to be the aid stations with the amazing volunteers. My go-to for nutrition was a serving of ramen noodles, 2 pickles, watermelon with a ton of salt on it, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, a cup of Coke, and a banana. I had that exact meal 4 times throughout the race just to keep me going. Outside of the physical, there were some moments of emotions and spirituality that are really hard to explain. At mile 30, my legs came back to life and I started to open up the stride. I thought about my family, more specifically my mom. And for those that know me personally, they know that my mom is my rock, and I strive to make her proud. Even at 36 years old, I still see her as the strongest person I know. When I got to mile 40, my body started to fall apart. My knees were puffy, it was extremely hot, I was getting bit by mosquitoes, my feet were swollen, and it felt like my shoes were choking them. But as I said, there was no turning back. There was one more mountain to climb and I was done. I shut my brain off and proceeded to finish what would be the longest distance I've ever covered in a day. Coming down the mountain, I could see Lake City. As I got back in, the sounds of cheering and bells got louder. I was slow, but I ran as fast as I could to finish strong. Millions of emotions were running through my body as I crossed the finish line. My body was in shock, eyes wide open, not knowing how to feel. I was dizzy and needed to be held up for a second to keep myself from falling. I saw pizza 20 feet away and knew I needed the calories. I called my mom and she was the first person I could think of. Still delirious from what just happened, she was concerned. She could see I wasn't well. She told me to change clothes as it was getting dark and to go where people were in case something happened to me. As I finished changing, one of the runners I spent a good amount of time with, Michael, approached my car with his family and asked if I wanted to get dinner with them at their cabin. I said yes, but I wasn't in a position to drive, and so I gave my keys to his father-in-law and he drove my truck over to their cabin. As I went from the car to inside inside the cabin, my body temperature just dropped and I started to shake. And that was a new feeling for me because it wasn't even that cold. It was roughly about 55 degrees, but for some reason I was just like shaking uncontrollably. And I think it was just my body temperature just dropping so dramatically from the race. They started a fire and I just sat there just to get my body temperature back up. And after about an hour and some dinner, I felt like I was in a position where I could get myself back to my cabin. It was about 30 minutes away, but that drive honestly felt like an hour. I had my high beams on as there were no street lights on the road. And so I had them on. So just in case any animals were trying to jump out, I would see them. But what I didn't realize is the reflection of the high beams on like the street signs were like piercing to my eyes because I just wasn't well. The first thing I did was shower and it felt so good. It just felt like my body relaxed for the first time in the whole day as I was up since 2 a.m. that morning. I laid in bed right after and just knocked out. So that essentially is like the recap of what happened, how it went, how I was feeling, and it was pretty cool. Yes, there were some definite difficult moments and emotional moments throughout the race, but it's definitely one of those things where you look back and you go, holy shit, I just did that. It was cool to see some of the stats and the numbers after the race, so I'll kind of pivot over to that. And just looking at my Strava here, the first thing I wanted to know was how many steps did I take in this entire day? And when I opened up the Garmin app, it said that I took 106 or 107,000 steps in that entire day. I burned over 6,000 calories in that race alone, covered over 12,000 feet of elevation gain. My final time was 14 hours and 51 minutes. And from what I heard, I guess trying to hit the 14-hour mark is decent because the cutoff is 16 hours. And just thinking back to 1 in 3 people don't pass, I was happy to just be at least over an hour from that cutoff time. The wild thing is, like, going into the race, I did have these little bags of food that I packed with a PB&J sandwich, some Doritos, watermelon sour punch kids or something like that, little Reese's, and I literally ate one of the PB&J sandwiches that I packed because I went straight to the aid stations for their food with the ramen noodles and the pickles. I didn't realize how much sodium my body was needing. So I was just trying to take it down as fast as I could. And the idea of like opening up a bag and trying to eat the food that way just seemed like too much work for me. One thing I changed last second was the idea of wearing a hat. I didn't even think about how hot it was going to be and how much the sun hitting your skin would impact you. It's like, just don't think about those types of things. Even when I run here in Colorado on the Front Range, I could be running 2 to 3 hours with no shirt on and be totally fine, but not really realizing how big of a difference it is when you're out there for 15 hours in one session. So now the question that lays ahead is, what's next? And I wanted to take this week first to just give myself a break. I took 3 days off of running. At the time of this recording, it's on a Wednesday, and I did my first run. It was like 5 miles, easy pace, nothing crazy. And I think I'm going to be easy this entire week. There's not going to be any crazy effort, as I just want everything to get back to normal before getting back to prep for one of my last races of the year. So the first half was really focused on just having fun, everything leading up to the 50 milers. That was my A race of 2024. And I have my eyes set on 2 races. As of right now, 2 races for the rest of the year. The first one is going to be the Spartan North America Championship in Seattle. It is a beast distance race, fast and flat course, and my goal is to take first place. One of the exciting things about this race is that all of the guys that I teamed up with for the Zion Ragnar earlier this year, where we won the race, are going for that as well too. So we are going to be pivoting from being teammates to now competitors against each other, all going for first place of the North America Championship. The second race, I'm actually on the wait list because I waited a little bit too long to sign up, is going to be High Rocks Chicago, where my goal for that race is to hit the podium for the first time in my High Rocks career. The reason why this is so big for me is because I am in a place where I am getting towards the top of the age group category, and I honestly feel like I maybe have 2 to 3 more years left of competing, and I would like to finish my athletic career at the professional level. And so for me, if I can get to a place where I'm podiuming the championship races for Spartan and podium the age groupers for High Rocks, then I can tell myself that you are in a position where you need to level up and go pro. And that's where my head is at right now. It's been a crazy 2024 and 2023, where last year things really opened up for me. me. And while I absolutely still love it, I know that this isn't going to last forever. And so I want to give this the energy and the time that it deserves, because I've said this before, I don't know how long it's going to last. So I want to make sure that when I do decide to walk away from being a competitive athlete, whenever that time is, that I don't have anything left on the table, and that I say, you know what, I did everything I could and I got to the best Omar that he could be. And when that door's closed, it's just going to close. And I kind of think about it when I quit drinking. When I was done, there was no looking back. And even till today, I still look back on it and I'm just like, no, I did it all. Like, there's no part of me that wants to go back to that. And there's no regrets about it. Yes, it was a wild time during my life, but I think about that with athletics, where it's so much fun. I'm learning so much about myself and the world, and it's helping me in different areas of my life. But I'm also 36 and I have to be real with myself that being pro is a different level, and there will come a time where I'll have to hang the shoes. So for me this year, I'm going to be taking the back half of 2024 to focus on 2 specific races and potentially going pro in 2025. So that's where I'm at. If you've made it this far to the end of the video, I appreciate you watching. I am going to be getting back to weekly videos, especially vlogging the training and the progress leading up to Spartan North America Champs. And if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your support, and we will catch you in the next one.